And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Greyboys podcast. I am your host, Super Kami Will, and I am very happy to talk to you today about one of my favorite cartoon shows of all time, Transformers Beast Wars. So before I get into my own personal takes on Beast Wars, I want to just quickly do a quick recap of the history of the show. Beast Wars was a sequel to Transformers Generation 2. It came out in 1996, aired for 3 seasons until 1999. It was one of the first completely CGI animated cartoon shows ever. It had multiple sequels, and this is a little confusing. In America, it had a sequel called Beast Machines, but in Japan loved it so much that they couldn't wait for more content that they made their own spin-off, not sequels, called Transformers Beast Wars 2 and Transformers Beast Wars and Neo, and then they did a reboot called Transformers Cars Robots. I think it was Cars Robots. That in America, I think, just became Transformers Robots in Disguise. And that's so America never picked up Beast Wars 2 and Beast Wars Neo. They only picked up Cars Robots, and they completely redubbed that as like a different show, not connected to Beast Wars. But so Beast Wars, I mean, where to begin? I fucking love this show. It's one of my favorite shows of all time. So season 1, I first got into it as a kid. It aired in 96. I was born 94, so I don't remember a lot about originally watching it. I remember I had a DVD of about like the first maybe like 6 episodes that I would just watch over and over again as a kid. And I loved it. And I never knew what happened afterwards. I would just keep rewatching those episodes. Like, man, one day I really want to actually watch the show. And it wasn't until I was in my early teens that I finally bought all the DVDs and watched the whole show. And I was blown away because it's a season. It wasn't what I was it wasn't what I remembered, because in a good way though. Season 1, it's very much a kid show in the fact that there are wacky antics, colorful characters, and it's action, but it's also a lot of jokes. Season 2 is where it transcended the franchise, I think. So let me get more into it. So it was actually Beast Wars was actually met with a lot of backlash when it first came out, because people who were fans with the original Transformers shows, back in the 80s, they didn't like that the Transformers was switching over to animals. Because Transformers Generation 2, the toys weren't doing well, the show sucked, so Hasbro had to freshen it up. So they switched over to animals. And the haters, I don't want to use the word haters, the people who didn't like the show, okay, that's haters actually, they coined the term, and this is real, truck, not monkey, as a way of their like showing their protest for the Transformers Beast Wars show. But it was, I mean, Beast Wars aimed for kids. It was, but then as an adult, I could say it. Like you watch this, and a lot of it kind of goes over kids' head, but this show really goes hard into adult territory. So the Beast Wars season 2, that's where it started getting a lot more dark. They started introducing a lot more characters and touched on some very emotional themes, I should say. So each cast, they were the Maximals and the Predacons. The Maximals were the descendants of the Autobots, and the Predacons were the descendants of the Decepticons. And so each cast or each group had about 4 to 5 members. Because back then, like I said, this is one of the first completely CGI animated shows. So they couldn't have like 30 plus characters on each team like the original Transformers shows, because it was just too expensive to make that many new character models. So each one had about 4 or 5 characters, which was good because you got to really know those characters. Like those characters were really fleshed out. And each one of them was so different and unique, and with their personalities and their transformations, they were so good. And the characters that they they kept getting more and more diverse. Not diverse in today's standards, but more diverse in that new perspective on the show, on the war that was going on between both sides. So one of the things that really always stuck out to me when I first watched this was, and where I thought the real show really started getting like, whoa, this is like more than just a kids show, was they had a character named Transmutate, who was only a one-off character for one episode. So it was, so Transmutate was a transformer who, during, you could say its birth in the show, was messed up. The character was born, but there was a problem when it was being born, and so it came out deformed. It couldn't transform, and it had the mentality of a child. And it was very, it was just so different from what any show as a kid I watched was like touched on. And so this character throughout the episode was swayed between both Predacon and Maximal, because it was innocent. It didn't want to fight. It couldn't transform. And the unique thing about it, and what was so beautiful about the episode, was it showed both sides originally fought to have Transmutate join them. And then because of the deformality, both sides didn't wanted to get rid of her. And it was so interesting because you think the bad guys, oh, they don't want her because they view her as this inferior transformer. You know, she couldn't transform, she couldn't really fight, she didn't want to fight, so they were like, just destroy her, whatever. And then you have the Maximals and Optimus Primal, the good guys, you know, the people who you're rooting for the whole show, who were also saying like things like, well, there's something wrong with her. She can't fight. They viewed her also as useless. And even Optimus Primal, the leader, suggested putting her basically in like a deep sleep so that one day they could fix her. And so it's very like not what you'd expect. And each side had one transformer. So they had Silverbolt on the Maximals and Rampage. Rampage, who was in the show, some wild, crazy beast transformer that just wants to do nothing to do but destroy and kill. And both of them saw something within Transmutate. And they fought each other. No, I'm sorry, they didn't fight each other. They fought both. They almost teamed up to fight both sides because they wanted to keep this transformer alive. They thought that she was beautiful for being different. I mean, it's just such a very touching, emotional show that even now I'm like getting like, whoa, like remembering it. So Rampage, this lunatic psycho serial killer, just did everything he could to plead with the leader of the Predacons, Megatron, just saying, no, you don't understand. We have to keep her alive. We can't destroy her. And he kept, I think, yeah, he always would use the word beautiful when describing her. And so the episode ends where both sides are fighting. The Predacons want to destroy her. The Autobots want to almost capture her to put her in stasis, deep sleep. And the episode ends with Transmutate. She's become friends with Rampage and Silverbolt. And she doesn't want to see them fight. She doesn't want to see them get hurt. So she sacrifices herself to stop the fighting. Not permanently, just that one battle. And it was such a beautiful ending where the Predacons, you know, they fought. You could say they lost. The Transmutate was destroyed. They were like, they left, moved on. And it was just Rampage and Silverbolt. And the Autobots, Optimus Primal, I'm sorry, not the Autobots, the Maximals, Optimus Primal, you know, they see Rampage, they're like, let's go, let's fight. And Silverbolt, just like, you know, he stops and goes, not right now. Like Silverbolt goes, he's mourning just like I am over Transmutate. And so the episode ends with just both of them, both Rampage and Silverbolt, you know, two enemies on opposite sides of the war, just mourning together over this different transformer. And I mean, if that wasn't an amazing episode, I mean, you don't have to be a fan of the episode, of the show, but I would definitely seek that one out because it is a really touching, just beautiful episode. And another episode that was, I also thought, you know, really defined what this show was they had a transformer named Dinobot, who originally started as a Predacon and then switched over to the Maximals. And throughout the show, he kind of has a dual battle within himself about, because he's almost with the good guys just because he hates Megatron. That's really it. He's different from the Maximals, even in their transformations. So the Maximals are mostly mammals. They're, Optimus Primal's a gorilla. You have a rat, a rhino, a cheetah, a hawk, and the Predacons, they're more like, almost you could like, animals that you'd really fear. They're a T-Rex, a tarantula, an ant, a wasp, a scorpion, a pterodactyl. And so Dinobot's a velociraptor. And so he doesn't fit in with them. But he has a more aggressive tone. He's willing to sacrifice them if he has to. But throughout the show, he really forms a bond with them and has like mutual respect for them. And so he's always teetering on the edge of good guy, bad guy kind of. And so towards the end, the Maximals feel like he betrayed them in this one instance where he went to sacrifice Silverbolt to defeat the Predacons. And they were like, this isn't what we do. This isn't how we treat each other. So they kind of treated him with a little bit of hostility. And this one Maximal named Rat Trap, he's constantly belittling him for betraying them. And it leads Dinobot to almost committing suicide in the episode. Like he was going to off himself. Which again, whoa, that they tackle this kind of issue. And he finally, after all of this, sacrifices himself for humans. Like, because they're in prehistoric Earth, and so Megatron is like, okay, well, if we're on Earth, we could wipe out humans, and because of that, then humans won't be able to help the Autobots in the original Transformers show, and Megatron will win. And so he sacrificed himself. And another beautiful, beautiful episode. It didn't resonate with me as much as Transmutate, because I love that episode. But the show really tackles just really adult themes, you could say. And I know I'm skipping around in a bunch of stuff. Not really skipping, but I'm like glancing over. The plot of the show is really out there. I mean, this show, way more than almost any other Transformers show, really goes heavily into the lore. I mean, there's talks of... This show is the first to introduce the idea of the spark, the heart of the Transformers, in the show, because they're in the comics. But in the show, they talk about sparks and how Transformers live, how they're created. And they even go, like, they're time traveling. They're talking about Unicron. They go and Megatron kills Optimus Prime from the original G1 show just to wipe out Autobots from history and change. It's a really amazing show. I mean, I'm not even talking about the looks of them were so cool. The ties to the original G1 show were so amazing. Things that you really almost didn't have questions for. Like, they bring back Starscream for an episode because of his immortal spark. Ravage from the original G1 show, who was the cassette tape from Soundwave, is there. It really goes heavy into like how the Decepticons, after the original G1 show, they had like a long-term plan that would last like thousands of years to eventually get back at the Autobots, then Maximals. I mean, it's a really, like, so beautifully woven in to G1 and all the tie-ins. The end of season 2 and into season 3 really is, like, if you're an original G1 fan, it really blows your mind how amazing it gets just in reference to those characters. But really, the show, I mean, it's hard to, I know it's hard to get back into the show, or get into the show if you never watched it before, because it was made in the early 1990s, or the mid-1990s, and the graphics, they almost really don't hold up. But I mean, for the time, they were almost revolutionary. They won an Emmy. They won an Emmy for Outstanding Individual Achievement in Animation. Emmys recognized the show for its contribution to the animation industry when it comes to TV shows, full live action, full CGI TV shows. But really, it's the characters that are the standout. I mean, the characters are so amazing. I would honestly say almost better than anyone in the G1 That might be a hot take, get a lot of people angry, but I mean, I really love these characters. And a lot of people do. I mean, there's a Transformers Hall of Fame. It's an official one, like, done by Hasbro. And as of right now, there are 22 entries. Yeah, 22 entries. There are 4 Beast War characters, who are Waspinator, Dinobot, Beast Wars Megatron, and Optimus Primal. Those are the 4 that are in it. And I think it really, to show how much people love it, they did 4 years in a row something called the fan choice, which was exactly as it sounds. The fans voted for what characters they wanted inducted in the Hall of Fame, and 3 of those 4 Beast War characters won: Dinobot, Beast Wars Megatron, and Waspinator. So I think that speaks volumes for how much these characters transcended Beast Wars. That even today, they're still beloved by the Transformers community. And I mean, IDW does the comic books, still has those characters. They're still present in both the TV shows and the comics. And I know, as of this recording, there's been news that they're gonna make more Transformer movies, and one of them, not one of, I think it's rumored. It probably won't happen, but I know I'd be really happy if it was a Beast Wars show, because I think I feel like Beast Wars hasn't gotten enough credit. I mean, I'm talking about all the credit it really has gotten when it comes to winning Emmys and fans voting for the characters to be in the Hall of Fame, but it's not as widely recognized, I feel like, as it should be. Because in the 90s, Transformers was kind of a dying brand. And Beast Wars was almost like their Hail Mary throw of, like, if this doesn't work, who knows if the franchise, the toy lines, they continue. And it succeeded in, I think, every aspect to really carve out its place in Transformers history, because it was just so groundbreaking for the time. I mean, it really was. I'd recommend, if you're a longtime fan and haven't watched it, and maybe if you haven't watched any Transformers and you want to get into it. Like I said, I know it would be hard to get over the animation, but I think if you really give it a little bit of time, you'll be invested in these characters. You'll get attached to them and the story that they're telling throughout the series. Because I think it's really... So I think it'll captivate you if you're new to the franchise, and it rewards you if you've been a longtime Transformers fan. Like I said, I'm keep saying, the animation style, it's not what you'd expect from a TV show nowadays. But I think it's also charming for what it is from its time period. It's a piece of the 90s. I've even talked about the opening song too. The opening song is amazing. It's very simple, but it's really good. And the season 2 version of the song is better. And I know I listening to this probably back, I almost barely talked about the actual plot of the show. But like I said, it's the characters that really captivate you. I mean, I only talked about a few of the characters. I mean, you have such great character arcs for characters like Optimus Primal, Cheetor, Megatron, Dinobot. It has the first Transformers couple, Silverbolt and Black Arachnia. And also, I talked about Dinobot, but there are multiple characters in the show who kind of switch back and forth between factions. And I think that's interesting, because that's something that they didn't really touch on in G1. I think the only character who went from one side to the other one in the original Transformers show was Jetfire. But that one's a weird one, because I just think they didn't do it as well as Beast Wars does. I mean, Beast Wars, these characters are talking about, real emotions behind why they're changing sides, why some of them can't change sides, because they this is when Black Arachnia, when she's having a conflict within herself of what she wants to do with her future, she's saying to herself, I was born a Predacon, this is all I've ever been, this is all I've ever known. She's almost scared of changing sides, of change. I mean, this show is just... I think it might be the best Transformers TV show, just character-wise. And I definitely recommend anyone, if you've heard this and you have some interest in trying it out, definitely give it a try. And at the very least, I implore you, please, watch the Transmutate episode. And I think that'll really get you to go, okay, you know what, maybe I'm going to give this show a chance. So that's going to be it for me for today. I hope you enjoy this. I hope it piqued your interest. I've been a long time Transformers fan, and I really hope listening to this made you. I hope at the very least this made you interested somewhat in the Beast Wars to look it into a little bit, Google it, whatever, because it is a really amazing show, and it's the franchise, the Beast Wars franchise, is kind of dead in the water right now. Like there are no real plans to do anything besides have some of the characters in comic books, and I would love it, love it, if in some way there's more representation of the Beast Wars franchise in modern day Transformers. So that'll be it for today. Like I said, I hope you all enjoyed it, and I'm